This is from a book called Parables from Other Planets by Hugh and Gayle Prather. I practiced after my baseball visits. Okay, this is the power that brings happiness. When Traj reached 9, the age of right and wrong, he came to Sa Mizurimi with a question. Father, it is said on all of Visoka, you are the greatest magician, and if you are not, I know that at least there are none greater since you can do anything. When Mizurimi started to object, his son held his hand up and said, Father, I'm not here to argue this point. I'm here to ask you why you don't put your powers to better use. I'm sorry you find fault with one who can do anything, my son. But tell me, what better use is there than to delight people and make them happy? Well, your audiences may leave the great dome entertained, but very often the lives they must return to are not happy. If you wished, you could give them everything they wanted. Well, this question is perhaps far more serious than you realize, so instead of giving words, let's go witness the answer together. So Mizurimi took his son to the market, where they stood for a while watching the lines of shoppers move slowly past the many open-air stores. A life is made up of moments. If each moment can be made happy, the entire life is happy. Here we see a time of buying and selling, a moment common to all people's lives. Tell me, who among these shoppers would you like to have all that they're seeking? Well, Traj did not hesitate. He picked out an elderly woman who was having difficulty maneuvering among those younger and more aggressive than she. First, Mizurimi gave her increased physical strength, which the woman seemed to sense because she started to stand her ground when other buyers tried to nudge her out of the way. And as her confidence continued to grow, she herself was starting to move other buyers out of the way. Then Traj realized something else was occurring. Just as the woman would step in front of a display of produce, the vendor would begin setting out the fresher fruits and vegetables he'd been holding in reserve and reducing the price of the older produce, even though it wasn't the end of market day. Thus, the woman always got her pick of both. Drawing Traj aside, Mizurimi said, So, son, what do you notice about my influencing events to make them turn out the way one person wants? Well, if the woman's first, then the other shoppers are not, and if the woman saves money, the vendors lose. The conclusion is obvious. Power cannot favor one person without slighting another. And what of the woman herself? Do you sense she's happier? Traj watched the woman a moment longer and said, No, she seems harder and more aggressive and anxious that her luck's going to run out. I cannot say she's happier. However, this is a marketplace and these are strangers. What about in a family where the interactions are based on intimacy? Certainly you could arrange for one to have everything they seek. So Mizurimi returned all circumstances of the marketplace to the way they were before, and then walked with his son a little further until they came within sight of a small store filled with fine, well-proportioned pottery. Mizurimi stopped and said, Well, here you see a husband and wife. They have talent as artists and skill as merchandisers. Near them, playing behind that small stone barrier, are their 2 children. Unlike many couples, they're fair with each other and divide all duties. However, it cannot be said that they have everything in life that they seek, even at this very moment. So choose, therefore, one of them to receive everything. Well, I suspect, said Traj, being artists, each of them would rather be doing something more creative than simply minding the store or tending their children. But surely the wants of the littlest child are few, and he could be given the life he seeks. So Mizurimi nodded, and instantly the child crawled over the barrier to a display of bowls and began pulling them onto the floor. And soon they were all broken. And the parents, instead of intervening, they joined him and started tossing the pieces in the air instead of interfering. And the brother sat quietly off to the side, looking strangely dazed and contented. Within this moment, said Mizurimi, the child receiving exactly what he wants, which is the full attention of both his parents, is indeed happy. But how long will that happiness last? After the family business fails, the creative needs of the parents go unfulfilled, and the older sibling wakens from his stupor and suddenly gets resentful. Having said this, Mizurimi returned the family and the store to the way it was before. I see, said Traj sadly. The powers you possess cannot make life work. they are of little significance. You've seen correctly, the power I have to control events is of little meaning. The only power worth having, everyone already has. It lies not in bending others to your will, but in the willingness to pass over your own discontents like water passes over the stones of a riverbed. The power that brings happiness, my son, is the power of absolute gentleness, not the power of absolute control.